My name is Alexandra Reed. I'm 29 years old, and I found out my boyfriend had been using me through a LinkedIn post. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's literal. 8 months ago, I met Ethan Clark, 27, at a tech networking mixer downtown. He worked in marketing, sharp suits, easy smile, the kind of confidence that feels magnetic before it feels rehearsed. I'm in tech consulting. Strategy, enterprise integrations, the kind of work that requires patience and long-term thinking. Ethan said he admired that about me. We hit it off fast. He was funny, ambitious, always talking about leveling up. I liked that he had drive. I told myself ambition was attractive. About 4 months in, his questions shifted. Not, "How was your day?" but, "Who was in that meeting? You mentioned a VP earlier. What's she like? Who really makes decisions at your firm?" I didn't clock it as strange. I thought he was curious, interested, supportive. He said he wanted to move from agency marketing into corporate tech, said he needed insight. Then came the introductions. "Babe, do you think you could connect me with a few people from your network? Just informational interviews. I'm not territorial with connections. I believe in helping people." So I introduced him to colleagues. He'd meet them for coffee, send polished thank you notes. It felt normal until he mentioned Margaret Whitmore. Margaret is more than a mentor. She's a force. VP of strategy at one of the largest tech firms in the state. 20 years in the industry. Brilliant. Ethical. She took me under her wing when I was just starting out. She changed my career trajectory. "Do you think Margaret would meet with me?" Ethan asked one night. "There's a senior marketing manager role opening up. It's perfect." I hesitated. Not because I didn't want him to succeed, but because asking Margaret for favors felt significant. "She's helped me a lot already," I said carefully. He kissed my temple. "You're the best. This could really change my life." A week later, I mentioned it casually over coffee with Margaret. "My boyfriend's trying to break into tech marketing," I said. "Would you be open to a quick chat? No pressure." Margaret smiled. "Send me his LinkedIn. If he's qualified, I'll pass his information along." A word from her carries weight. We both knew that. I made the introduction. 2 weeks later, Ethan texted me. "OMG, she's incredible. Interview next week." He went through 4 rounds. After each one, he came back to my apartment. We'd sit at my kitchen table. I'd help him rehearse answers, refine strategy, calm his nerves. We even talked about moving in together by the end of the year. I thought we were building something. Then last Monday happened. I was scrolling LinkedIn during lunch, and there it was. So incredibly grateful to be starting my new role as senior marketing manager next week. Special thanks to my amazing girlfriend, Alexandra Reed, for connecting me with her mentor, Margaret Whitmore. Your guidance meant the world. 200 likes already. I smiled. Commented publicly, "So proud of you." Then I tried to text him about dinner plans. Message failed. Instagram, blocked. Facebook, blocked. WhatsApp, blocked. Calls, straight to voicemail. I sat in my office staring at my phone. 8 months. Helped him get his dream job. He thanked me publicly, then erased me privately. The betrayal wasn't explosive. It was cold. Calculated. That night, I poured a glass of wine and replayed everything in my head. The questions, the timing, the ambition. And then I remembered something. 3 months earlier, Ethan had left his laptop open at my place. He'd asked me to check an email while he showered. A message thread had been open with his friend, Ryan. I'd felt guilty at the time, but I'd taken screenshots, just in case. I opened my phone, scrolled, found them, and my stomach dropped. I stared at the screenshots for a long time before I let myself actually read them again. 3 months ago, when I'd first seen them, I told myself I was overreacting, that I'd misread the tone, that I was being insecure. Now, after the LinkedIn post and the blocks, the words felt different, sharper, intentional. Ethan. Okay, so the girlfriend situation is working perfectly. She just introduced me to Margaret Whitmore. The Margaret Whitmore. Ryan. No way, that's huge. Ethan, coffee next week. If I land this job, I'm probably done with Alex. She's nice, but she's kind of safe. Not exactly power couple material. There was a laughing emoji after that. Then another message. Ethan, Margaret's the real access point. She knows everyone. Obviously, she's married, LOL. But career-wise, that's the room I need to be in. My chest tightened. Ryan, what if she finds out? Ethan, she won't. She trusts me. I play the supportive boyfriend thing perfectly. Always interested in her work. She loves that. A pause in the thread. Then the line that made my skin go cold. Ethan, once I'm in at that company, I won't need her anymore. Might keep her around till my first month is secure. After that, clean break. I had convinced myself, back then, that it was stupid guy talk, exaggeration, ego flexing. Now, it was a blueprint. I set my phone down on my coffee table and covered my face with both hands. I didn't cry. Not yet. What I felt wasn't heartbreak in the cinematic sense. It was humiliation. The kind that settles in your stomach and makes you question your own intelligence. 8 months. Every time he asked about my meetings, every time he leaned forward, eyes bright, when I talked about Margaret, he wasn't listening to me. He was mapping access points. I picked up my phone again, opened LinkedIn, scrolled back to his post, still glowing with congratulatory comments. I typed a reply beneath my earlier, "So proud of you. Wishing you all the best in your new role. You've worked hard for this opportunity. Professional. Neutral. Public." Then I opened a new message. To Margaret Whitmore. My fingers hovered over the keyboard longer than I expected. Hi, Margaret. I need to share something uncomfortable with you. It's about Ethan. I attached the screenshots. I explained the timeline, the relationship, the blocking, the LinkedIn post. I'm not asking you to take action. I just felt you deserved to know the context behind his access to you. I'm sorry if this puts you in an awkward position. I read it 3 times before sending it. Then I closed my laptop and tried to sleep. I didn't. Margaret called me the next morning. I was still in bed. Dark circles under my eyes, phone buzzing against my nightstand. Alexandra. Her voice was steady, but there was something under it, protective, almost maternal. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I said quickly. I should have seen it. No, she said firmly. You tried to help someone you cared about. That's not stupidity. That's decency. I swallowed. She paused. I forwarded your message to Derek. My heart skipped. Derek? Derek Polson, the CEO. I sat upright. You didn't have to. I know, but this isn't about revenge. It's about character. I recommended him. My credibility is attached to that recommendation. She continued. He starts Monday. Derek is his boss's boss. HR is going to address this Friday. Address it how? They'll show him the screenshots, ask for an explanation. Depending on his response, it could be anything from a behavioral agreement to rescinding the offer. I closed my eyes. This was real now. Alexandra, Margaret added gently, people who manipulate relationships like that, they don't stop when they get what they want. You did the right thing. After we hung up, I sat in silence, validated, but also uneasy. Part of me wondered if I'd gone nuclear, if I'd let humiliation steer the ship. Then I replayed the messages in my head. Once I'm in, I won't need her. No remorse. No hesitation. Just strategy. Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. What did you do? I didn't need to ask who it was. You sent those messages to Margaret? Are you insane? I stared at the screen. They're making me sign some behavioral agreement or they'll pull the offer. Do you have any idea what you've done? Another message came through. You couldn't just let me have this, could you? You're jealous. You can't handle me being more successful than you. I actually laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. More messages. You're petty. You're insecure. You just proved why I needed to move on. 12 messages total, each more frantic than the last. Not once did he deny the messages. Not once did he apologize. I screenshot everything, blocked the number. Saturday morning. Another unknown number. "This is Ryan. You need to fix this." "Of course. You're ruining Ethan's career over private jokes between friends. Grow up." I typed slowly. The messages weren't jokes. He admitted he was using me for access. He blocked me the day he got the job. I shared proof with the person whose reputation was on the line. That's not sabotage. That's transparency. "He was venting," Ryan replied. "Guys talk." He wasn't venting. He was planning. There was a long pause. Then, "You're just mad he doesn't need you anymore." I stared at that sentence. Need. As if relationships were transactions. "Tell Ethan to stop contacting me," I wrote. "We're done." Blocked. Sunday evening, I received an email. Subject line: "Very disappointed in you." From Linda Clark, his mother. She called me vindictive, jealous, accused me of trying to destroy her son's future. Said Ethan was devastated. I read it twice. Then I replied once. "Linda, I don't know what Ethan told you. I have screenshots of messages where he admitted to using me for professional access and planning to leave once he secured the job. I shared those messages with the mentor he manipulated because her reputation was involved. Whatever consequences he's facing are the result of his own actions. Please don't contact me again." I never heard back. Monday arrived. His first official day. I tried not to think about it, but I did. Every hour. Part of me wondered if I'd crossed a line. Then I remembered the LinkedIn post. Public gratitude. Private erasure. That wasn't impulsive. That was calculated. And calculations deserve consequences. Tuesday afternoon, Margaret texted, "Coffee tomorrow? My treat." My pulse quickened. I had a feeling this wasn't just about catching up, and I was right. Wednesday morning, I met Margaret Whitmore at our usual cafe, the quiet corner table by the window where we'd had career talks for 3 years. She studied me for a moment before speaking. "How are you holding up?" Honestly, I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. I feel justified, and also kind of terrible. "That's called having a conscience," she said gently. "It's a good sign." I exhaled. What happened Friday? Margaret stirred her coffee slowly. Derek called Ethan in. HR was present. They showed him the screenshots. And? He denied them at first, claimed they were doctored. Then he said they were jokes taken out of context. Of course he did. Derek didn't buy it, she continued. He told Ethan we hire for integrity as much as skill. Using a romantic relationship to gain access to leadership, then discarding that person, shows a fundamental character issue. Hearing it said out loud made my chest tighten. They gave him 2 options, Margaret added. Sign a behavioral agreement with a 3-month probationary period, or decline the offer. I swallowed. Which did he choose? He signed. For a moment, I felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, just a strange, hollow calm. He's angry, she said carefully. Very angry. He's already framing it as you sabotaging him because you couldn't handle his success. I gave a short laugh. That narrative seems popular. Margaret's eyes softened. Alexandra, you told the truth. You didn't embellish. You didn't demand consequences. You simply provided context. I nodded, but the knot in my stomach didn't fully loosen. There's something else, she added. I looked up. Monday afternoon, he tried to add me on LinkedIn. You're kidding. I wish I were. He sent a message saying he hoped we could maintain a strong professional relationship and that he'd love to grab coffee to discuss strategy. The audacity stunned me. He copied Derek on the message, she continued. He doesn't realize our executive team shares a compliance view of internal communications. So Derek saw it. Yes, he declined the request and forwarded it to HR as documentation. I actually laughed this time, a real one. Not from joy, from disbelief. He really thinks networking is just persistence. Margaret leaned forward slightly. People like that don't stop unless they hit a wall. And now? Now he does his job. He's on thin ice. If he performs and keeps his head down, he'll survive. But one more stunt like that, he's gone. I nodded slowly. It wasn't the cinematic downfall some part of me had imagined in my angrier moments. It was worse. It was quiet accountability. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You really couldn't let it go, could you? Ethan. HR told me everything. You sent private messages to my mentor. Do you know how humiliating that is? I stared at the screen. You humiliated yourself, I typed back before I could stop myself. His response came instantly. You're obsessed. You couldn't handle me outgrowing you. Outgrowing, like I was a stepping stone he'd already used. I helped you, I replied. You blocked me the same day you publicly thanked me. You're dramatic. There it was. Minimize, deflect, blame. You could have just broken up with me, I wrote. You didn't have to stage manage it. He didn't respond to that. Instead, you've made things awkward at work. People are looking at me differently. That's on you. No apology. Not once. I blocked the number. Again. By Thursday, the narrative had fully shifted. I made the mistake of checking LinkedIn. Ethan had posted again. Starting a new chapter isn't always smooth. Sometimes people from your past can't handle your growth and try to sabotage your success. But I'm choosing to rise above negativity and focus on the incredible opportunity ahead. The comments were a mix. You've got this. Don't let the haters win. But there were also quieter replies. What happened? One comment stood out. From Derek's executive assistant. Wishing you success in your new role, Ethan. Remember, integrity and professionalism are the foundation of any great career. It was polite, measured, corporate, and devastating. I didn't react. I didn't comment. I just closed the app. Over the next week, word started to spread. Not from me. Not from Margaret. But offices are ecosystems. Stories leak. Someone in HR mentions a behavioral agreement. Someone else connects dots. By the end of week 2, Ethan wasn't being invited to after-work drinks. Meetings were cordial, efficient, distant. He had the job, but not the trust. And in corporate environments, trust is currency. Meanwhile, socially, the backlash continued. A mutual friend texted me, I don't want to take sides, but this got messy. I stared at the message. Messy, as if clarity were somehow inappropriate. Another friend, more blunt. Honestly, we all thought he was using you. Didn't want to say anything because you seemed happy. I sat with that for a long time, 8 months. And apparently, the signs weren't subtle to everyone. My parents were less diplomatic. My mother said, he treated you like a networking event, not a girlfriend. My father simply said, you don't build a life with someone who treats people like leverage. They were right, but it still stung. 2 weeks after everything exploded, Margaret and I had our usual monthly coffee. I still feel strange about it, I admitted. Like I tattled. She shook her head. You protected my reputation, and you protected yourself. I hesitated. The worst part isn't that he used me, I said quietly. It's that he saw my support as something to exploit. Margaret's gaze softened. That's not a flaw in you. That's a flaw in him. I wanted to believe that. I was trying to. 6 weeks later, Ethan was still at the company. He'd made it through probation so far. Margaret told me he kept his head down, did decent work, but he hadn't built real connections. People were polite, professional, distant. The irony wasn't lost on me. He schemed for access, and now he had access without trust, which is a very lonely place to stand. The last time I heard from him was a single email. No anger this time. Just one line. Was it worth it? I stared at the screen for a long time before closing my laptop. Because the truth, it wasn't about worth. It was about boundaries, and some people only understand them when they finally hit one. 6 weeks after everything detonated, the noise had quieted, but it hadn't disappeared. It had just shifted from loud confrontation to quiet narrative control. I learned that the hard way when I ran into Ryan at a coffee shop on a Thursday afternoon. He saw me first. I could tell from the way his posture stiffened. For a split second, I considered pretending not to notice him. Avoidance would have been easy. Instead, I walked up to the counter and ordered my drink like a normal human being who had nothing to hide. As I waited, he muttered just loud enough for me to hear. Some people can't stand seeing others succeed. I turned slowly. If that's what he's telling people, I said calmly, then he left out a few screenshots. Ryan rolled his eyes. You didn't have to go nuclear. It was private conversation. It stopped being private when he used it to manipulate real access, I replied, and blocked me the day he got what he wanted. He shook his head like I was unreasonable. That's when it clicked. In their version of the story, I wasn't the woman who was used. I was the jealous ex who retaliated. There's something almost impressive about how cleanly certain people rewrite history. Ryan grabbed his coffee and left without another word. I didn't feel victorious, just done. Back at work, things were stable, busy, grounded. But every so often, someone would ask gently, "Are you okay?" That question hit harder than the accusations. Because yes, I was functioning, but okay? That was a moving target. The hardest part wasn't losing Ethan. It was losing the version of the relationship I thought I had. 8 months of conversations, dinners, shared plans. And all along, he had a parallel strategy running in the background. That realization messes with your sense of reality. I brought it up in therapy. My therapist listened quietly as I described the LinkedIn post, the blocking, the messages. Then she said something I wrote down immediately. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Your only job is to not go digging through the dumpster afterward. I laughed. Then I cried. Not because I wanted him back, but because I hated that my kindness had been reframed as naivete. Margaret and I kept our monthly coffee ritual. At our next meeting, she looked almost sheepish. I owe you another apology. For what? I asked. For introducing someone like that into my company. I shook my head immediately. No, I introduced him. You introduced him because you believed in him, she corrected. That's not something to apologize for. She paused, then added, Derek held a team meeting last week, talked about company values, integrity, transparency, didn't name names. But everyone knew, I said. She gave a small nod. He said, talent opens doors. Character keeps them open. That line stayed with me. Talent opens doors. Character keeps them open. Ethan had focused on the first half. He never understood the second. Professionally, he was still there, technically successful. But Margaret mentioned something interesting. He doesn't get looped into strategic conversations anymore. Not yet. People are cautious. Trust, once cracked, doesn't shatter loudly. It fractures quietly. And in corporate environments, fractures spread. He'd gotten what he wanted. The title, the salary, the prestige, but not the influence, not the access he'd envisioned. The irony was almost poetic. Socially, the dust settled unevenly. A few mutual friends distanced themselves from both of us. Conflict avoidance at its finest. One friend, Jason, called me out of nowhere. Look, he said bluntly, we kind of suspected he was opportunistic. I closed my eyes. You could have mentioned that. You seemed happy, he said. And honestly, we didn't think he'd be that obvious about it. Obvious. Apparently, ambition radiates differently when you're not in love with the person emitting it. One evening, I made the mistake of checking Ethan's LinkedIn again. Not because I cared, but because curiosity is stubborn. He'd posted a photo from a company event, smiling, confident, polished. Caption, grateful to be surrounded by leaders who believe in growth and second chances. Second chances. I wondered if he understood what that phrase actually meant, because second chances require acknowledgement, and he had never once admitted fault. No apology. No, I'm sorry I hurt you. Just deflection. Projection. Blame. I closed the app again, this time without the sting. The blocking still bothered me, not because I wanted access, but because of the choreography. Public gratitude, private erasure. It wasn't impulsive, it was planned. If he'd broken up with me honestly, this isn't working, I need to focus on my career, I would have respected that. It would have hurt, but it would have been clean. Instead, he treated the relationship like a bridge he burned only after he crossed it. That's what lingered. Not heartbreak. Disrespect. A few days later, I ran into Margaret again unexpectedly, not for coffee, but at a conference downtown. She introduced me to a colleague as one of the most principled consultants I know. The word principled landed differently now. After the session, she leaned closer and said quietly, "You know, he asked HR last week if the probation would ever be removed from his file." I blinked. "And it will if he maintains clean conduct for a year. But reputation, that's harder to amend." That was the thing about integrity. It's invisible until it isn't. And once it's questioned, it echoes. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat with a thought I hadn't fully confronted yet. Did I regret sending the screenshots? I turned the question over carefully, not emotionally, logically. Margaret's credibility was attached to her recommendation. If Ethan had manipulated her later, burned her reputation, and I'd stayed silent, that would have been complicity. I hadn't exaggerated. I hadn't lied. I'd simply revealed the truth. If truth feels like sabotage to someone, that says more about them than it does about you. For the first time since it all happened, I felt something solid settle in my chest. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. A week later, I received one final message, not from Ethan, from Derek. Short, professional. "Alexandra, I want you to know your discretion and honesty were appreciated. Integrity matters here. Thank you." I stared at the email for a long time. It wasn't validation I'd sought, but it felt grounding, because the story floating around might paint me as jealous, or insecure, or dramatic. But the people whose reputations were actually at stake, they knew the truth. And that was enough. It's been a little over 3 months now, long enough for the drama to fade from people's daily conversations, not long enough for it to feel ancient history. Ethan is still at the company. He made it through probation. Margaret told me he does decent work, meets deadlines, keeps his head down, but he hasn't built real alliances. No one loops him into strategy sessions unless they have to. He's not the first name people think of when something high visibility comes up. "He's technically fine," Margaret said during our last coffee, "but no one trusts him with influence." That sentence landed heavier than any HR consequence. Because influence, the thing he actually wanted, requires belief. And belief can't be engineered. It's earned. I've thought a lot about that night. The LinkedIn post, the blocking, the cold realization. What hurt wasn't just that he used me, it was how cleanly he discarded me. The choreography still amazes me. Public gratitude, private erasure. He didn't even give me the dignity of a conversation. No, we need to talk. No, I think we want different things. Just silence. I keep coming back to that. If he'd broken up with me honestly before starting the job, I would have respected it. Maybe even wished him well, but he didn't want honesty. He wanted efficiency, and I was an obstacle to be cleared once the door opened. Therapy helped, more than I expected. I told my therapist about the screenshots, the harassment, the LinkedIn narrative. She asked me something simple. "Do you miss him?" I thought about it carefully. I miss who I thought he was. That's the tricky part about manipulation. It doesn't erase the good memories. It just reframes them. Were the dinners fake? Were the future plans calculated? Or did he compartmentalize so effectively that he convinced himself it wasn't cruel? I don't know. And honestly, I've stopped trying to solve that puzzle. Some questions don't deserve your energy. Socially, things stabilized. A couple mutual friends drifted quietly away. Conflict avoidance masquerading as neutrality. Jason and I grabbed drinks once. He admitted, "We should have said something earlier." I shrugged. Would I have listened? He didn't answer. Probably not. Love has a way of filtering out warnings. My parents moved on faster than I did. My mom still refers to him as the networking intern. My dad said something that stuck with me. Someone who treats relationships like transactions will always assume everyone else is doing the same. That explained a lot. Ethan believed I sabotaged him out of ego, because in his framework, everything is leverage. He couldn't conceive that I acted out of principle. 2 weeks ago, I ran into him for the first time since everything happened. Pure coincidence. Industry mixer. Crowded rooftop. Dim lighting. Too many name tags. I saw him before he saw me. He looked polished, controlled. When our eyes met, he hesitated. Then he walked over. Alex. His voice was careful, measured. Ethan. A beat of silence. I guess we're both still in the same circles, he said lightly. Seems that way. He shifted his weight. You know, it didn't have to go the way it did. There it was. Not an apology. A negotiation. It went the way it did because of what you wrote, I said calmly. His jaw tightened slightly. You could have talked to me first. I would have, I replied, if you hadn't blocked me. He didn't respond to that. Instead, he said, I hope you're happy. It wasn't kind. It wasn't cruel. It was probing. I'm at peace, I said. And for the first time, it was true. He studied my face like he was searching for something. Bitterness, maybe. Then he nodded once and walked away. No closure speech, no dramatic confrontation, just two people who learned different lessons from the same story. Last week, Margaret and I had our usual coffee. She asked me directly, do you regret sending the screenshots? I didn't hesitate. No. Not because I wanted him punished, not because I wanted revenge, but because you don't protect someone's reputation by hiding the truth from them. If he had burned Margaret later, used her name carelessly, and I'd stayed silent, that would have been on me. I didn't fabricate anything. I didn't exaggerate. I simply handed over context. He still has his job. He still has his salary. He just has a file with his name on it that reminds leadership to watch him. Consequences aren't the same thing as destruction. They're alignment. Sometimes I think about his question. Was it worth it? Was what worth it? The screenshots? The discomfort? The temporary chaos? Yes, because self-respect isn't loud. It's quiet and steady. It's choosing not to let someone rewrite reality at your expense. It's refusing to carry shame for someone else's strategy. I didn't ruin his career. I interrupted a narrative. There's a difference. Dating? Not yet. I'm cautious in a way I wasn't before, but not cynical. That's important. Margaret told me something during our last conversation. Don't let one opportunist make you transactional. That line hit hard because it would be easy to swing the other direction, to calculate, to guard everything. But I don't want to become suspicious by default. I want to remain someone who helps, who connects, who believes in people, just with better boundaries. If you're listening to this story and something in your relationship feels transactional, pay attention. If someone is overly fascinated with what you can offer instead of who you are, notice that. I ignored small discomforts because I didn't want to seem insecure. I wasn't insecure. I was intuitive. There's a difference. I'll end with this. Ethan, if by some chance you ever hear this, I hope the job was worth it. I really do. Because you didn't just lose a girlfriend. You lost the chance to be trusted without scrutiny. You lost the benefit of the doubt. You lost someone who genuinely wanted you to succeed. And that's harder to rebuild than a probation file. As for me, I kept my integrity. And that's a title no one can block me from.